Hi, I'm Rick Anthony, and welcome to the Someone You Should Know podcast, the podcast that focuses on musicians, authors, and interesting people. We like to say we're making a difference one artist at a time. So sit back, have a cold one, and get ready to meet someone you should know. We are in the midst of Mardi Gras season, and we're starting with some great music to get you going. An old friend joins me. He had one of the most downloaded podcasts in 2024. He's back with his wingman, a producer from the Big Easy. They're going to share some exceptional music in a project called Frank Sintich and the French Quarter Kings. We welcome my dear friend Frank Sintich and David, the producer. Hello, guys.
Rick,
hey.
What's happening?
How you doing, guys? This is a real treat.
Cheers.
The music is exceptional. Cheers. We got Frank on the show last year, like I said, and we knew that Frank was a musician and a concert promoter in Northwest Indiana and Southwest Michigan. For anyone who missed out the podcast last time, Frank, can you update us on exactly how you got into music and everything?
Music started when I was a very young kid, 8 years old, living on 63rd and Hermitage in Englewood in beautiful Chicago. My brother and my mother loved music and ended up getting a guitar using S&H green stamps at Weebolt's, showing our age here. And
I got a lantern with S&H green stamps.
Yeah. I'm officially old as dirt.
Yeah, me too.
Got lots of stories. I remember. I just produced a Christmas song. I just released it literally a week before Christmas. It's called Christmas 1966. And it's exactly about when I was 6 years old and I got that first guitar and my parents bought me 6 lessons for Christmas. And I learned how to play Jingle Bells on the E string and the B string. So that's how it started, Rick.
Awesome. Very good. David, same question. What was how did you get into music, and what was your why for actually becoming a producer?
Interestingly enough, the guitar wasn't an interest of mine. My brother, who's 3 years younger than I, when I was 13, he got hit by a car. My mother felt so bad for him when he was in the hospital, bought him a guitar. He had no desire to play it. And I'm like, what the hell's this thing? All right, this is kind of cool. And plus, I dig chicks. So there's always that.
There you go. That's the
reason. Like almost famous over here.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Who were some of your influences, David?
Oh, early on, it was a lot of the, 70s rock bands like The Faces, Led Zeppelin, not really much so much The Who, but, Rolling Stones, bands like that. But then I started getting into heavy metal, which, to my mother's, she wasn't taking it too much. But it was just, everything was all about heavy metal. And then I found Motown, and that changed my life. That literally changed not only my life, my musical kind of trajectory, getting into more soulful stuff, getting into things that are more melodic. It was just an awesome period of my life.
Wonderful, wonderful. How did you two meet?
How did we two meet?
Yeah, how did you guys meet?
Which bathroom stall was that?
Let me tee it up, David.
All right.
So I was in a band called Chaser, and the lead singer of that band is now the lead singer of Kansas for the last.
Oh gosh, Ronnie.
Yeah, yes. Ronnie. And David and I David and I were in a band with Ronnie the last go round. I don't know, 15 years ago, but and I was getting kind of tired of being in that band, and an ex-wife of mine.
An ex-wife.
Spin the wheel. Choose your ex-wife. Says, my friend, the keyboard player, is playing at this place in Aurora, whatever it was, the Key Wester, Dave. And I'm like, all right, I'll bite. So I'm in the parking lot and I hear the band, and it's like they're playing like Brandy, you're a fine girl. What a good wife you would be. I'm like, I hate this shit. I want to play Starship Trooper, So I go in the bar, and the place is full of people. There's women like everywhere dancing. I'm like, this doesn't suck. And then that night, I sat in. I played 2 songs.
Uh-huh.
David called me the following Tuesday and said, hey, our guitar player's leaving the band. You want to join our band? And that was it. I joined, and we played together for about 4 years.
Uh-huh.
Literally 300 to 400 shows. It was
That's right.
Jeez. What year was this, Frank?
2003, 4, 5, 6.
Okay, got it. Wonderful,
It was a lot
wonderful.
of fun. It was a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Man.
Now, like I said in the open, Frank's episode from last year was one of the most downloaded podcasts of the year. Congratulations there, Frank.
Thank you.
I don't have an award to give you or whatever like that, but since that interview, you've put on some purple, some gold and green beads and delivered some wonderful music. How did this new sound come together?
Okay. Essentially, I went down to visit David and Juliet in April of last year for French Quarter Fest, which is an amazing. The fest is contained within the French Quarter, and it's mostly local talent, and it's one of the best festivals I've ever been to. It's amazing. I've been to it about 7 times. And David's right in the middle of it because he lives right there.
Right there, yeah.
You leave his apartment and there's people playing, music right at his door. It's that kind of a thing. So met a bunch of his friends, wonderful people. Dave took me to all his hangouts. I met so many beautiful people there, and went back for Jazz Fest. Which is another crazy.
That's a bucket list item for me, boy.
Listen, I'm telling you, I never thought I would go. When you go to the French Quarter, you typically don't leave the French Quarter because everything is there for you. But David introduced me to some friends of his, and they had tickets to go to Jazz Fest in a courtesy van. That's a whole other story. That'll be another podcast, Rick. But I went down there and hung out with some wonderful people, and I just was immersed in the beauty of the funk of the French Quarter. And I just was influenced enough to start writing music. And I came home from Quarterfest and I wrote Bayou Woman. And, I sent it to this guy. He's like, man, it doesn't suck, pretty good. And then I said, well, why don't I, play, let's record these songs. So that's kind of how it started.
That's how it all started. Wow. Well, like I said earlier, the music is right in my wheelhouse. It's just exactly what I love. I could listen to that all day long. Although being from Northwest Indiana, I did spend some time in New Orleans, and it still kind of lives right here in my soul right there, from the incredible Cajun and Creole cuisine to the jazz and the blues and the Zydeco music and the vibe of the city. I visited many, many years back, but I'm going to put it on my list for 2025 to come visit New Orleans again, because it is just one of the most amazing cities. And my condolences go out to everyone we lost on New Year's Eve. Frank, your favorite part of New Orleans, what would you say? Is it the people? Is it the music? Is it the food? Is it a combination of this, that, and the other? What would you say it is?
I think the people make up everything you just said, Rick. I think the people influence the food, influence the music. One of our favorite places to go is Antoine's and Hermes. They're connected, and Antoine's is a white tablecloth, very, very. I call it.
It's the oldest restaurant in the French Quarter.
Yeah. I'll let David talk about that because he lives there. But it's a great restaurant, and our friend Steve Burke, he's a saxophone player. He plays there on Sundays, and it's him and it's a jazz trio, and they know every song. I mean, you name it, they know it. And
wow.
I met Steve 10 years ago at Quarterfest. Just chance meeting. He was in a band, well, he still is, called the Storyville Stompers, and they wear the white hats, and they kind of remind you of Mayberry, Mayberry's band. Remember that?
Yeah.
Tease and stuff. Anyway, phenomenal man and just a great guy. And then I had the pleasure of introducing David and him together, and they became good friends. And he's just an incredible. I mean, David, come on, that man,
amazing sax player.
He's just
amazing.
He'll play. He can play with anybody in the world. That's how good he is. And he played on my songs, which is so humbling for me. And I'll just do a quick impression of him. I called him after the songs got released. I dropped the songs, and he said, "Frank, man, let's talk big time, man, big time." Well, thank you very much, Steve. it was, yeah. I mean, the people make up every element that you suggested earlier.
David, you and Juliet have been down there for a long time. What's the reason why you think New Orleans is what's the best thing you like about New Orleans?
Well, being transplants from Chicago, we moved down here 5 years ago, right in the beginning of the pandemic, which you can imagine would be really weird because moving into a very touristy city that is completely shut down, uh, it was both a curse and a blessing because the curse part was there was nothing open. But the blessing was we got to meet all the locals that lived in the neighborhood. So our network, kind of grew really fast of all these amazing people. And I tell you, I have more friends here in the last 5 years than I did in, my whole time in Chicago.
I can
So
understand
it's
that.
just a different vibe down here.
Oh yeah, I noticed that. I've lived in the South many times, being in the Air Force and such, being bounced around and such.
Right.
And one thing I noticed about people south of the Ohio River, they really and truly know how to say thank you. They know how to say hello. They know how to say, "What can I get you?" And of course, sit down and get you some food. That's one thing I definitely love about the area below the Mason-Dixon line is the people. Got to agree with you there. Looking forward to coming to see you guys in New Orleans at some point here. Now,
Open invite.
we get to the music, let's talk about who comprises the French Quarter Kings. Who are the members of the band?
So myself, obviously, and I'm just going to say this about David. Rick, you have probably one of the most talented left-handed bass players on your show right now.
Oh, you had to qualify it with left-handed?
Well, you paid me to say that.
Well, we haven't
No,
had
he's-
McCartney on yet, so here's your chance, Dan. Yeah,
Well, there you
give
go.
all the title so we can have Sir Paul on.
Look,
Okay.
Rick, all kidding aside, he's one of the best, funkiest. He plays the funk like no other.
Awesome.
He plays rock. He plays look, the two of us together, it's magic, and we were wingmen to each other.
Always.
Okay, so then I'm literally, David, I'm going to let you tell this, but it's literally the best session musicians in the French Quarter.
Wow.
And the studio is KS Productions, Kurt Brunis. Kurt Brunis is an award-winning, he can play the trumpet, the saxophone, the trombone, and he's an engineer producer at his studio in Slidell. That's another story. David and I, we took a cab for the first session. I didn't know what to expect. The studio's in his home. So we pull up to this gated community and we're like, where are we? And he opens the door and it's like he's a night owl. Okay.
Uh-huh.
He is a night owl. And it was almost like he was in his bathrobe, but it's early, boys, 11 o'clock, But the studio was first class, and he had, it was just a marvelous experience with some of the best. So Steve Burke on saxophone, a gentleman named Shelton Saunier, who was 100% Cajun. And then Jody Haydel, a great session drummer, and David on bass and me on vocals and guitar and slide. And then
So Frank, you're playing the slide on By Your Woman, is that right? Oh
yeah, all the guitars and the slide. And then I finished everything here in Portage with Lou, man. I got to give Lou props because I recorded my vocals. Well, here's what happened. Let me sidebar real quick. I got sick when I was down there. I think I had COVID, but I didn't want to take a COVID test because I didn't want to cancel the session. Sorry. I've done worse things.
Uh-huh.
But I tried to sing. I couldn't sing a note, man. I could barely sing anyway, but I could not sing a note. And I just said, you know what, let's bag it. And I was a little upset because I really wanted to do the entire recording there just for the vibe of it.
Uh-huh.
The coolness, the vibe, the whole experience. But it ended up turning out fantastic anyway. So.
Well, and I will say that the producer, he's like the Creole version of Rick Rubin. He will get the best out of you.
With the beard and everything?
Oh my God. He was just amazing. Just, I'd be doing a bass line and he goes, that's good. I like that. That's cool. Try something different. So I tried something a little different. And he goes, that's cool too. Try something a little different. And I'm like, absolutely. So, he really did bring the best out of all of us.
Yeah.
Awesome. Very good. Let's talk about Bayou Woman. That's the first song we're going to feature here. Backstory on it?
Jackson Square. which is, the mecca for.
It's the epicenter.
That's the epicenter, sure. You got street performers, you have prostitutes, you have hot dog vendors.
And you got the church right there, too.
The church.
Drug dealers.
Yeah. Don't forget the church, Frank.
Yeah.
The church.
That's the counterbalance.
Yeah, right. And in the middle of all that, you have a Catholic church. Talk about, blasphemy. So there's two buildings, Rick. They're mirror images of each other that were designed by this duchess in the 1800s that are bookends on both sides of Jackson Square. Okay. The
best view in all of New Orleans.
Best people watching. I mean, the vibe, you name it. Like all the music that goes on in Jackson Square, you're right in it. And it's right down the street from the Mississippi River, the levee. So the words just came out of me like a faucet. Down the bayou, in the quarter lives a queen, where the river snakes on through near the levee. I mean, come on. It's that simple, man.
It practically wrote itself.
Yeah,
awesome. It's wonderful. And I hate to, say this, but so far it's my favorite song of 2025. I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. Love it.
Did you download it a million times, please?
I will definitely try. Okay, grabbing my doubloons, my beignets, and my beads. Get ready for some Mardi Gras here from the Crescent City. Frank Sintich and the French Quarter Kings. This is Bayou Woman on the Someone You Should Know podcast.
I got a few now.
Down the bayou, in the quarter, lives a queen. Dressed in colors, on her skin, blonde and ready. Where the river snakes on through near the levee. Hear the magic run so wild, she holds steady. Just let go, free to sin. Just let go, let her in. Her eyes so green, like the sea, she's a mystic. I followed close, the world runs free, I'm unsteady. Just let go, free to sin. Just let go, Bayou Woman. Down the bayou, in the corner lives a queen. Where the river snakes on through near the levee. Just let go, free to share. Just let go.
There is nothing I don't like about that one. Oh, what a great song. Bayou Woman from Frank Sintich and the French Quarter Kings. Joining me is Frank and the incredible David, the producer. We're going to have more conversations with those two in a second. First, I want to say thanks so much for tuning in to the Someone You Should Know podcast. Hey, you know something? Our good friends at Buzzsprout gave us some latest updates. We're now heard in over 2,700 cities and over 101 countries, or actually 101 countries around the world. And we're going to hit some in David's neighborhood. How about these ones, David? Kenner, Homa, Baton Rouge, Metairie, Gentile, Biloxi, Bay St. Louis, Pascagoula, and New Orleans. So a bunch of neighbors listening in here on the podcast. They better be, because
So awesome.
David, the producer, is on it. Because I want to say thanks so much for tuning in to Someone You Should Podcast, heard wherever quality streaming audio is available. We're speaking with my friends Frank Sintich and producer David. David, we got to talk a little bit more about you've worked with a lot of people being a producer. Can you name some that we might know?
Yeah, and when people say, "Well, you're a producer," I'm actually not a music producer, but I'm a podcast producer, and I did it for two different podcasts. One for my wife, so I'll talk about in a second. But I did something during COVID because we were all just bored during COVID. So I'm like, let's have some of our friends, on and just do a YouTube channel. So I had, John Anderson, lead singer for Yes. I had Bruce Kulick from Kiss. Okay.
Yeah.
I had, of course, our good friend Ronnie from Kansas.
Yeah, Kansas, yeah.
And Fee Waybill from the Tubes and a whole bunch of other people.
Fee was one of the very first podcast guests we had.
Isn't he awesome?
I absolutely love the man. It is just, he told me all the stories about him and Richard Marx, the godfather of all his kids and everything. And all the times they would go to that cabin
in Wisconsin.
Yeah. So and he told me the story of how that all came to be, as far as how they chose the name of the Tubes, and also the music was just so incredibly good. And
amazing.
It's like, why isn't this being heard on the radio?
I know.
It just bothers me how commercial radio. That's what this show is all about. It's a platform for songs that belong on the radio that aren't, and it's just a way for. I wish I could just play your song week after week after week. This stuff here, that I'm hearing is just absolutely phenomenal, and I really and truly hope if there's any other musicians listening in, that they go ahead and forward their stuff to us at Someone You Should Know Podcast at gmail.com. Someone You Should Know Podcast at gmail.com. That'll get through to us. But let's talk a little bit about.
I just want to give him. I'm going to give him some props too, because he basically started that from nothing. This producing this show that his wife wanted to do, sipping whiskey.
I know.
You got to give this guy some props for he infiltrates. David, tell one quick story of how you got someone that you really wanted to get. You got him somehow.
There's a whole bunch of stories like that. So Juliet's podcast was called The Unwritable Rant.
Right. Yeah.
And it started off as just storytelling. And I asked her, I said, what would you think about intertwining, maybe an interview once a month between all your stories? And she goes, oh, that could be kind of cool, because she was a writer for Rolling Stone. So she gets the whole thing, right? She's like, that would be kind of cool. Let's think about doing that. So our first guest was Gary Wright, the guy from Dreamweaver.
Yeah.
It's unfortunately that he's passed now. He's not with us any longer. But what a fun interview. She had so much of a great time doing that. And she's so good at interviewing people that we said, let's start doing that then twice a month. And it became even more than that. So she's had on everyone from Charlie Daniels, Ari Shaffir, Bert Kreischer, Eric Roberts from Batman. She's just a ton of amazing people. But the fun part was, when we were small, we're like, okay. And I'm sure, Rick, you can relate to this. When you first started out, you're like, how am I going to get these guests on? How am I going to get some cool gets? And you always just push the envelope a little bit more than you probably should.
That's
say,
how I
well,
got Frank.
Yeah. I was just gonna say that.
I started with Fee Waybill and got Frank.
yeah. Oh, I'm sorry you went backwards, Rick. That's no, but
David, I was really blessed
go ahead.
because I worked for the All Star Radio Network for 19 years, and my job was to interview celebrities. I got so lucky. And the Someone You Should Know podcast, was a weekly show. It was a 15-minute weekly show heard on about 200 or 300 radio stations back in the late 90s and early 2000s. So I first went through the people that I already knew. I said, hey, listen, I got this new podcast show. What have you been doing the last 20 years?
Right.
So I was lucky to do that. And I peppered in a lot of local talent. That's one of the things I really wanted to do because Chicago is just loaded with such great talent.
Absolutely.
And so I was just peppering those in there, and then people started. I mean, I haven't actually solicited a need for anyone, like trying to go after anyone in the last 3 or 4 months because they've just been coming to me, and
that's
exactly
the nirvana of what you do.
Yeah, it's just because we're close to our 250th episode right now, and
congratulations!
I'm just really, really enjoying doing it, especially the fact I'm not like those TikTokers, those influencers and stuff that go, "Oh, I've got 604 million listeners" or whatever like that. No, that means nothing. I'd rather go for the number of cities and the number of countries I've hit. That's right. more an old man's game rather than a young kid's game type thing. But I don't have anyone knocking on the door, saying, "Hey, here's a whole lot of money." I'm doing this for fun, just doing it to stay. I'm retired from radio. This is my way of staying current in the business and such. And I just love doing it. I love helping others. That's the whole thing. All we ask is that you just share it on your socials. That's all we ask,
Juliet was in the top 200 podcasts in her category for over 3 years.
Wow,
and
wonderful.
She became a 100-aire.
Wow. Yeah. No, I was telling Leslie one time, I really and truly need to go ahead and do a video of me getting kicked in the crotch, dancing, singing off key and everything like that. I'm sure I'd get a whole bunch of listeners, dolled up in makeup and stuff like that. Yeah. I guess maybe I was born 40 years too old or too late to. But the thing is, this podcast is just too much fun. I'm going for a totally different genre of people. I can't probably dance on camera if needed to be. But anyways, Frank, I got to ask a question for you here. How does this working with David and the French Quarter Kings compare to doing what you were doing with Lou?
It's completely different. Totally different vibe, playing with live musicians. So instead of me, creating drums from a computer, I had a great session player playing drums. There's no way I'm going to create a saxophone on a computer or a microphone or a harmonica or a squeeze box. There's no way that you can do that. So it was a wonderful experience. If you listen to those two songs and compare them to all my other music, my solo music, it doesn't even sound the same. It's just organic, and you can feel New Orleans in the songs. But my background is like classic rock and pop and progressive rock. You kind of hear those elements in there, and playing with that guy, like getting to play with. We hadn't played together since 2007. We had one it was at a hotel lounge. We jumped up on stage during Quarterfest in April and played with this blues band. We just took over and played that funky music. Oh no, we played Brick House.
Brick House.
And
that has a funky bass line. Yeah, I know that.
Well, absolutely.
Love it.
But we hadn't played that song in like 15 years, Yeah, we just did it. It was a blast. Anyway,
awesome.
So,
and Rick, I have to tell you, Rick, that and something Frank may or may not have mentioned to you, but I was retired for 8 years as a bass player. I haven't picked up a bass except for, maybe I'll pop up on stage once every couple of years or, do a song or something. But when he came up with these songs, he says, like, you're going to the studio with me, whether you like it or not, we're doing this. And I said, oh, man, I got to shake the rust off what I'm doing here. I literally sat with my bass for weeks just getting my chops back. So I think
I bet you the strings felt like ginormous at that point, right?
Oh, yeah. The bass might as well have been 3 times the size.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you listen to those two songs, Rick, the bottom end is immense, and it's him. So,
Well, we heard one of them. Let's play Queen Bee coming up right now. What's the backstory on Queen Bee? I know it has to do with that lovely woman from the French Quarter.
I think the best way to describe this song, it's kind of a metaphor for the French Quarter. You're gonna get stung, man. You're gonna get stung by a bee. It is the French Quarter. It's really about the music, the culture, the food, the people, the joy of the French Quarter.
Everything that I love. Tell you what, we're going to feature that song right now. Here's Queen Bee from Frank Sintich and the French Quarter Kings right now on the Someone You Should Know podcast.
Seen with the queen. I stayed here for a while, trapped in her spell. The rhythm, the style, no stopping me. I'm wild. Hold on to your life. You better watch your step, watch your step. Hold on for dear life. When you're messing with the queen bee. Some people are asking, who's that man? I'm not reacting. I act like I've got a plan. There's no turning back now. I'm stuck in a web. It feels like I'm made to deal with the devil. Hold on to your life. You better watch your step, watch your step. Hold on for dear life. When you're messing when you're messing with the queen bee. Stung by a bee. She's a queen. I let myself go free. Been seen with the queen. Hold on to your life. You better watch your step. Watch your step. Hold on for dear life. When you're messing with the queen bee. Queen bee.
Another great song right there, Frank Sintich and the French Quarter Kings. Queen Bee is the name of that one. David and Frank, this next section is my personal favorite, is one that I enjoy the most. It is called Tales from the Road. This is those infamous road stories where things didn't go quite as planned. We heard one from Frank last time, but I understand there is a better one than the one you had last year about the Twin Lakes, Wisconsin fiasco. Would you guys like to share? I'll let whoever talk about it, Frank or David.
Let Frank start it.
I'll tee it up. So, Rick, this story is unique in itself because there's no way in hell that I could tell the agent on Tuesday morning, because the show was on a Saturday, and you kind of circle back with the agent. If it was your first booking at a club, and how'd you do, boys? And the club owner calls the agent and all that stuff. Well, it was our first time at, I'll say the club. It was Walter Payton's Roundhouse.
Really?
Okay. And we opened up for a band there. It was Libido Funk Circus. It was in the summertime.
I know those guys.
Yeah, they're great guys. They're super
great.
great people. They played at David's wedding, as a matter of fact.
Right.
And we play this. We go to play this club, and we just started getting the people dancing, and it was starting to get exciting. So I used to call the songs out. We're going to play this song, and then like the fourth song of the set, our drummer, God bless him, was saying, "Frank, I need to go to the bathroom." And David, you want to take over?
So Frank wouldn't let him.
Oh,
Frank says, "We're just getting the crowd ramped up. We got him. We got him now. Let's keep the dance songs rolling. Okay, so we're going to do this medley. We're going to do this song. And we're going to do this medley." And I could just see the fear in our drummer's eyes.
Oh,
He's
my.
just going, "Oh, my." Now, we thought it was just something, innocuous, like he had to go pee. Well, turns out we were way wrong.
Uh-oh.
Way wrong.
So
So in the middle of a song, all of a sudden, Frank looks at me. He gives me this like disturbed look on, "What's behind us? What, what?" And I go, "Oh my God. Oh, I smell the same thing you do."
sorry, it's still funny.
Oops.
Still funny
Oops.
after all.
And, give it about a minute and a half. We cleared a room of 250 people in about, minute and a half, 2 minutes, Frank?
A few minutes. Because also some person had too much to drink and vomited
because they
in
smelled
front
bad.
of the stage. So now you have, the room is empty. And he lit, all right.
Fast forward to your conversation with the agent.
Yeah. So I'm not going to say the agent's name, but he is a legendary a-hole agent. And listen, Rick, I never met this man, but I've spoken to him 1,000 times. Okay. Back before emails, phone calls, old school. So I did have a phone call with him, and he goes, I said, how'd it go? We want to play there again.
All right.
And he said, quite frankly, the owner wasn't too pleased because the crowd cleared out like in 15 minutes. And I said, yeah, whatever. Because who would believe that story? Nobody would believe that story.
Hey, let's talk socials, guys. Thanks for that story, guys. I love it. Let's talk socials. David, what's the best way for people to find out about you and your wife as well?
So you could find me on Twitter. That's where I'm pretty much hanging out these days. So you can go, X now. It's hard to remember that. At Behind the Rant.
At Behind the Rant. Okay, that's the name of her podcast, or was her name of her podcast. And I understand she might have a book coming out. Is that true? I'm teasing you here.
She does have a book coming out. So she's not done with it yet, but she's talking to actually 3 different companies right now, are publishers that are interested in publishing it. So she already did one when she was living in LA. She was a publicist for a lot of the big bands like Motley Crue, Pat Benatar, and somebody else I can't remember. Poison. Yeah. So she did that, and she wrote a book about it, but she did not name names and didn't do that whole thing. But it's an amazing book called Morning Neurosis. And this is Actually a totally different kind of a book. It's fiction, based in New Orleans. And what better place to live for a writer and, have a creative slant.
Oh yeah.
This is an inspiring city every single day.
Have a beignet and a cafe au lait, and then just sit there at your typewriter, just have some fun. Yeah, that sounds like my
forgot the
kind of place.
bourbon.
Well, the bourbon too. I say that till afternoon. Frank, how about your socials?
Well, my music is on like 18 platforms, but the most popular ones are Spotify, Amazon, YouTube. And I have a website, sintichmusic.com. And I'm always working on music. Right now I have three new songs, actually. Two songs are ready to go. One song is the newest song is called The Road. It's coming out in a few weeks. And there's several others. My brother had passed away in December, unfortunately.
Oh, I'm sorry, brother. I'm so sorry.
It was really a shocker, and wrote a song for him, and that's going to be coming out soon. So I'm very busy. I'm very active, and I love what I do. And I do have 3 songs that I wrote for New Orleans. So that will probably happen at some point this year. I'll go back down there and hang out and have the pleasure of doing this again. I think we'll just call it NOLA Sessions Part 2.
I love it. We'll have to have you back on the show again because you are family, man. Frank,
Love to do it,
And
Rick.
David's now part of my extended family. There you go.
Nah, you're the best. Well, Rick, I always, David, I don't know if you know, but Rick and I met because he emceed some of the shows I did over at LaPorte Civic. I did a few shows there in 22, 23. And Rick was kind enough to come out and do the stage announcements, which I can't stand doing because you're a professional, Rick, and I'm not. I'd rather play my guitar on stage and talk, so. But thank you for doing that.
Well, if you've got plans of going anywhere this year as far as touring, let me know. I'll be more than happy to MC for you.
Well, for sure.
All right, David, plans for 2025 that we should know about?
Yes, staying alive and trying to stay sober here in New Orleans.
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
Good luck. And guys, I thank you so very much for taking the time to be on this. Thank you for the great music. That's the whole point of this thing, is sharing the great music that you guys got. Thanks for your friendship for the years, Frank and David, our new friendship there. And my very best to you both for 2025.
Pleasure, Rick. Thank you for having me.
Hi, this is Rick Anthony, thanking you again for listening to this episode of Someone You Should Know. Now, if you're an aspiring musician or an established musician that's looking for a little exposure, I invite you to drop us a line at someoneyoushouldknowpodcast@gmail.com. That's someoneyoushouldknowpodcast@gmail.com. Also, I invite you to tell a friend about the Someone You Should Know podcast. I thank you for tuning in this time, and I invite you to check us out next time on the Someone You Should Know podcast, because you never know who's going to show up. Until next time, remember, God loves you, and so do I.